Hello and welcome to Follow Everton. We have Chris, the Aussie Chris, who's currently in Michigan with my backdrop here, and we have Corey from. Is it the Wirral? Is it? It's nearby to Liverpool if it's not in Liverpool itself, but
Yeah, just over the water, within the eye shot of the new stadium.
yeah. So from those the likes of yourself that's actually there here, like in the area of Liverpool, what is it starting to get pretty exciting? Seeing what was it that final panel being put in, and we're seeing day by day, week by week, the stadium starting to get to a pretty good spot now.
Yeah, I mean, over the past couple of weeks, you've noticed it more and more. What you really notice when you get there compared to watching the videos and stuff is the actual size of the stadium. You
Mm.
compare it to Goodison Park when you drive past it or you walk past it, and it is absolutely massive compared to what we've got. So it is a sight to behold. A lot of locals getting very excited, even non-Evertonians. I know a couple of Copites, a couple of Reds who are saying that how good the stadium actually looks. So it must be good if they're able to say that through gritted teeth.
Yeah, instead of it's that Liverpool are incompetent, that Everton have a good stadium. Instead, they actually like the stadium. And there was some news. I haven't spent a lot of time looking into it, that the Friedkins might well be looking to expand the seating already. Was there? Did you know much detail on like where they'd be expanding on the stadium, or is it just kind of hearsay and noise at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's more hearsay. I think they'd be silly not to, especially considering that I think we will absolutely max out all the season tickets. I believe it's likely to be the South Stand, is what they're looking to extend. But
Okay.
again, that's all speculation. There's nothing concrete or anything like that. No insider knowledge. That's probably just the biggest bit of speculation, really.
Yeah. What the last thing I would want is us to halt the stadium being opened for 10,000 more fans or whatever they decide, and we're stuck at Goodison later because that would be about right. We're finally done, and then we shoot ourselves in the foot. Let's prove a concept for a bit, but that yeah, if that happens, great. But you don't want to be at the detriment the way that Anfield was, where there was an entire stand just not open for a while. You don't want to risk that on the grand opening either. But yeah, I heard that and thought that was interesting. But irrespective of the stadiums in the area of Liverpool, we're going to be going to a stadium this week that we've had recent success in. We had a really poor run under Frank Lampard. Dwight McNeil, I think, may have scored a brace that day, and we won 2-1 against Southampton before they were inevitably relegated that season. But yeah, we've had relatively good times there recently. What are your thoughts on Southampton and the trip away?
So I'm expecting a win. We're a much better team than Southampton. Southampton already look doomed to go down. They're very, very open. But for some reason, I've got a sinking feeling that Southampton are due something. Now, if that is the case, hopefully it's just a point, but we really should be winning. I'll predict Everton to win, but for some reason, I feel more nervous this week than I did against Fulham last week.
I mean, I think it wouldn't be Everton if we weren't worried about playing a newly promoted side and finding a way to stoop to their level, or them coming up to us and us not showing our Premier League grit. It seems generally, and touch wood, touch whatever object gives you that superstitious comfort, that with Dyche, we seem to be getting results against those teams more than previous managers. We did okay against Ipswich. We did the double, I believe, over Burnley last season, or thereabouts, a triple if you include the cup. Luton, well, that was another story. We got a draw away. And who else was it? We had a third squad that went down last season. And Sheffield, we drew away with them and beat them comfortably at home when they were newly up. So over the 6 matches, it seems that Dyche was able to, generally speaking, do the business, take Luton out of the equation, but that's still more points than previous managers. So for me, yeah, it could be a tricky fixture. We're talking about them already looking kind of down. Part of that is Russell Martin's squad looks to be playing a lot like Burnley 2.0 from last year. They look pretty good in possession, but they're not, you know, let's say the next updated model that you could take would be Tottenham Hotspur or something like that. Then maybe you take on an Aston Villa, but these teams that have a bit more money, ability to migrate the ball up the pitch quickly. They'll try and trap people out of possession and go up quickly. I don't see Southampton doing that, and there's a game I think for us of they're going to try and make us overcommit forward, and they pass around us, and they could have a lot of errors that have led to 6 goals away this season. Sorry, just giving the ball away cheaply with Bednarek and others just not looking up for it. But on the other side of it, if Everton do commit forward, are we running the risk that they bypass us and we're caught in transition? Because we're kind of notorious for those kind of goals.
Yeah, I mean, they've not got the technical players out wide, I don't think. They've got the young lad, Diblin, who looks very, very good, but still not polished at the Premier League level. Ryan Fraser on the other side, who doesn't have the legs that he used to have. So he's fit, and they will get up the pitch, but technically they shouldn't have nowhere near enough for us to struggle.
Yeah.
I think if we pack the midfield and have players that are willing to run forwards, Njai, Beto, later on in the game, I'm looking at you. Their players switch off so much. The amount of times I've seen them concede a goal and defenders are just absolutely nowhere where they should be. If that was Michael Keane, he'd have an effigy.
So, yeah, to that point then, actually, it's surprisingly similar to Everton this year. We've had a couple up 2-0, and we've blown it a few times. We're up 2-0 against Ipswich, so okay, take that one out of consideration. It was Villa and Bournemouth in 2 weeks succession there that we got pretty worried. But in the last 3 matches, Southampton were up 2-0 against Leicester and got eked out a loss after Jordan Ayew struck home a winner last minute. They played they had a lot of possession against Man City, but weren't that effective. They had one strike that hit the bar, but again, kind of completely dominated in reality, even if they had possession. Then they were up 2-0 at Stoke and nearly threw that one away as well, huh?
Yeah, again, and they play good football, so there's chances that they'll score goals. But because of how open they are defensively, and that Russell Martin is sticking to his guns with that kind of football, they just can't hold on to a lead. When teams come on at them, they really, really struggle. They don't have that kind of Dyche stalwartism to be able to grind out a result, to hold on. That backs against the wall nature. So there's always a chance there, especially if we're down a couple of goals going late on. And there's a chance for us to really attack and show that kind of grit and determination that potentially got us that point at Fulham.
Okay, so a couple ways we can segue here, but what I think we'll do, talking about how we can make an impact at the end of the match. That screams, well, what about our squad? How are we looking for fitness? What's our bench depth look like? So we'll talk to Dyche's press conference for a little bit here. So the concern from the weekend, McNeil hobbled off. The line was that McNeil didn't train today, but hopeful he will still be available. Do you see him starting? How are you feeling for that one?
I think he'll play. I know what Dyche said there, it's touch and go, but he's expecting him to be fit. He's a player that Dyche likes as well. So if Dyche expects him to be fit, it's not going to be a Patterson case where he'll probably just keep him waiting for a few more weeks. If he's fit, he'll play. Most likely he'll start. So I'm expecting that to be the case.
So you think he'll start? So, and Abdoulaye Doucouré, again, if this was Mikel Arteta, we wouldn't have heard anything here. We'd have heard smokes and mirrors, and no one's injured, no one's documented in training. But Dyche is pretty upfront with it. He said Abdoulaye Doucouré had a small issue, but he's back in training today, so should be fine. So I imagine you're thinking pretty similar for Dukes. You expect him to be fit and ready?
That's a little bit more different because his game is purely physical. If his body's breaking down a little bit, his game and the main part of his game, because let's be honest, he's not technical, the major part of his game is weakened. So I could see him starting Mangala over Dukes, but personally, based on form on the previous game and physicality, if it was me, I think you'd put Mangala instead of Doucouré.
Yeah, and if Doucouré is fit enough, and there's a lot of things you can say about Abdoulaye Doucouré being a menace with his size when he's fit and able and hungry to win the ball back, that is not one of them. I could see him causing all sorts of problems, just kind of lingering around with it, or dangling his arms out, chasing down players in the back half and causing turnovers. that could lead to easy opportunities, but he needs to be fit to do that. And I also worry the second he gets the ball, sometimes it's amazing, but a lot of the times it's just like, why did you do that? Or that conversation we had last week when he's playing in that defensive role, is he moving the ball up the pitch enough? Is he playing the pivot like the way we'd want? Because Mangala has a lot more comfort in possession. So I think, but I have a feeling Decore will play over Mangala the way Dyche has been picking his squad if he's fit and able. But if he's a bit injured, maybe it's 50-50.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time we say this is there's a difference between what we can see from his press conferences and the news and how players have looked in terms of form and what Dyche is actually going to do, i.e. Michael Keane last week. He likes to do things his own way. Sometimes it benefits, sometimes to the detriment. But certainly in terms of his loyalty to the core, that's certainly one of them, and that will be probably one of the most contentious decisions he'll make in regards to Saturday.
There's at least four. I would say there's four true kind of committed players that he's choosing over others. Ashley Young. Now I think he's done better than we expected, so I don't want to rip on someone that's actually held his own this year, but he's in that consideration. Abdoulaye Doucouré, we just talked to. Michael Keane, he's been playing better than we expected, but is he really up to par? No. And the fourth one actually is James Tarkowski. Do you agree with that at the moment?
100%. Obviously, I think McNeil as well. I'd add them on as well because at times when McNeil could have come off, whether he starts games or not, but there's times when he could have come off, i.e. last week, and he's kept him on. He's persevered with him in the match. So I think I'd add McNeil onto that list as well.
Yeah. What I was thinking for a second Harrison, but he has been started on the bench a couple times or kind of been subbed early, so he's slightly more on the fringes than McNeil in that same consideration now that we have a fit and able Jesper Lindstrom. So that'll be interesting there. Let's go back. So Brozier, again, not on the grass yet, not smoking the grass, not walking the grass, not touching the grass, but probably in. He should just say he's like floating in water. He's on the aqua because then it's like he's in the pool. He's kind of getting his weights done, but he's still not ready. I think the one that really stuck out to me was the conversation about Patterson. So someone near the end made a more brave conversation or brought up the Patterson saying, well, why isn't he in contention? They bring up his injury, but he's been on the bench for a while. It was about what, like 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row now where he was in the was it under 21s and getting game time, and the key line was that he will play again when he's ready to compete. Which, okay, what do you need to compete other than competing? And I think again a bit of a head scratcher. They had brought up then, well, if you want Ashley Young basically at right back and Mikolenko at left back, maybe a right wing would be an option if you have a few players out with injury. He kind of brought up what to me was a real cop-out answer of, well, youth development these days, they only know one position. They really focus on he's a right back and is definitely a right back. Meanwhile, someone of a similar age and upbringing in James Garner is a central midfielder, and then he goes to right back or right mid all the time. So what does that say about Dyche's kind of, how much do you believe in what Dyche is saying here versus do you want to read the tea leaves or read between the lines on where Patterson's at?
Yeah, so let's cut it nice and simple. He's chatting wham. He does this, obviously, like I said, he's very set in his Dychisms. He's quite stalwart in terms of what he wants to do. And he doesn't budge on that. I don't think he likes Patterson, especially in a right back role, because he goes forward far too much, and he does get caught out of the back a little bit. But sometimes you've got to roll the dice a little bit. Dyche isn't that kind of manager, so that's why Patterson doesn't get in. And when he says about competing, it's not fitness, because, like you said, he's played under 21 games. He's been ready on the bench for weeks now. The lad is clearly fit to go, not just normal fit. He's Dyche fit. He just doesn't rate the lad, or he just doesn't trust him.
The only the final nail in the coffin, which will be a pretty extreme scenario, so I don't want to happen. It would be Ashley Young's injured, James Garner has his continued back injury, Seamus Coleman has another hamstring, so they're all out. And then you go, who starts? Roman Dixon, Michael Keane, or Nathan Patterson, and then they end up choosing Dixon. Then Patterson is gonzo for the future at that point. But I think we kind of already know that. To Peter Duggan's point here, that he wants to keep Ashley Young at right back where he doesn't belong and just waffling. Yeah, that's certainly kind of the case, but he's losing that player. But I suppose if you're keeping the rest of the team cohesion there, it could be worse. But Ashley Young hasn't been the key driver of our lack of success, but he's certainly not taking us forward. If we have Ashley Young again next season, I'm going to lose it because all he's doing is losing one step every year, and it's our incompetence that says he's even possible in that position. When you are trying to be at least mid-table, when the Friedkins come in, a new stadium on the horizon, Ashley Young can't be there. But if we're just saying we'll grind out results, heck, he's got 3 assists now.
Yeah, I actually think he's had a decent season. At the start, he really, really struggled, and he does struggle against pacey players because he just doesn't have the legs. It's not his natural position, but he's been very solid for Dyche so far. I understand why he's picking him. I don't get outraged when I see him on the team sheet at the moment. It is still indicative of how poor we are in terms of having Ashley Young playing right back constantly. But like you mentioned, he doesn't trust Patterson because he's more attack-minded. Ashley Young is experienced. He will sit there. He doesn't cross the halfway line. All of his assists have come from really, really deep. So that's what Dyche wants. He's performing how Dyche wants him to. And he's not doing a bad job at doing his job. He's doing what's asked of him and he's doing it correctly. So I don't get outraged when I see him. But like you said, if he's there next year when we need to be progressing, that's when there's an issue.
Yeah, and it's one of these for Dyche to me. Like, it's not simply, I mean, we could say Dyche out, and I don't think there's an issue with getting a replacement. My problem is if there is an extension to next season, then we're really screaming it. We're not going anywhere forward fast. We have the finances. We have an opportunity for better. Now we say we had an option between 2 people, Marcelo Bielsa and Dyche. This is the Bielsa moment. Bring him in maybe after we're guaranteed safety at the end of the season. Sack Dyche immediately and bring him in. Get him to kind of, you have a caretaker manager for the final 5 matches of the season, hopefully, and you have Bielsa watching that youth squad and then has a whole 3 months. There's not a World Cup to pay attention to. There's not a Euros. It's a perfect time to develop that team and bring in players that you'd want with better finances. That's how I had kind of how I'm seeing Dyche, unless he goes on one of those horror shows where he's not getting a result for 13, 14 matches.
Yeah, I think Dyche stays until the end of the season for me. You don't rock the boat, especially mid-season. We all know the line of the club is that we really, really want we want nothing more, or the bare minimum and the aim is just stay safe, be in the Premier League, going into the new stadium in the new season. So he'll see out his contract. There's a potential that he does stay, but I'd be surprised, and I don't think many of the fans would be happy if he stayed, because even with money, I think he's quite limited to what he can do. So we'll accept that, get through to the season. At that point, then I think we have to demand more progressive footballs, most likely from a different manager.
Yeah, PSR will be out of the woods, and we're hoping new stadium, new ownership, time to start spending a little bit. We have a pretty lean squad. We have Harrison will go back. Jesper Lindstrom will go back. We have a few people out of contract, Ashley Young included. All of a sudden, you say, here's a great opportunity to rebuild. It's not like we have to end contracts and pay out. We just bring in new players. But, yeah.
That's it. And it's a chance to, because all them players are leaving and they're all players who play a certain kind of way. It's a chance to then, like you said, start afresh. We can bring in a number of players, all who fit a very similar footballing ideology, a footballing style. So we get a manager who plays that similar kind of style. We get the players in. It's the perfect opportunity for it. Same with Calvert-Lewin. He leaves on a free. He's a target man. He's not a technical player. We might try and get a different kind of football than someone who doesn't play with back to goal.
Yeah. So you brought up that point you brought up the point of DCL. Beto had an excellent moment from late on, a header with conviction. You know how much it means to him to be there. He got some praise midweek. Where do you see Beto fitting in now? Because he hasn't had much opportunity to date.
Yeah, I think part of it has been when we've been playing okay over the past couple of weeks, we've not been chasing games. So you want the target man up front to hold the ball. You Calvert-Lewin playing that kind of defensive game. But going forward, I want to see Beto played more. I don't think necessarily he starts too many games still, because again, we want that kind of game management. Calvert-Lewin is really good at holding the ball up as long as we don't leave him isolated. But what Dyche really needs to do is start playing him earlier. If it's clear that the tactics aren't working, like against Fulham, he's isolated, bring Beto on. It can be like for like, and then you're just changing the tactics and trying to get in behind, running the channels, or you can bring two strikers on, just not in a 4-4-2, because that does not work.
So there's a couple. I haven't talked much to the comments, so I'll quickly add a couple here for Danny, who said hello, and Mr. Blue Skies, welcome. We have quite a lot of our regulars here. We have Mr. Blue Skies, Peter Duggan, as well as Emma, Danny, David B's on here. So for all of you, welcome. Peter Duggan brought up a point that I think is kind of teeing up what we've been discussing here. So 3 reasons to sack Dyche immediately for bad lineups. So either who do we put in a position? What is the formation entirely? The tactics of us playing kind of this confusing low block, and then we'll start to box teams in for brief periods. If we are ahead, we seem to just slowly fall back, looking more and more tired and hope rather than plan. And then the question becomes, are the substitutions not progressive enough? I would say no, they're not. The other piece of it is if you don't have the squad of players that you want to replace to do the same role, that's a different problem. And that's the way I felt with the Ipswich match, actually. When I was watching, I didn't think we had the players available to do that. If we have, we don't have Ghana, but we have almost everyone else defensively. We might be a little bit light in the midfield, but this is almost as good a squad outside of maybe Amanda Bruja and James Garner than you would actually want, right?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing is that defence. Probably our main 2 attackers in terms of Beto and Calvert-Lewin. So the first 11 is the first 11 as it should be. They're all fit. It is squad players in terms of, like you said, Garner, Chimiti, and Brozier. So he's got that starting 11. We do like a couple of game changes, but again, players like Lindstrom, even when you're defending, if you bring someone on like him to stretch the game a little bit more, and you make that team that's behind and pushing think a little bit more about what they need to do. He doesn't do that. So like you said, he has got options there, not fantastic, but even with what's limited, he doesn't utilise what he has.
Yeah. So what at this point, well, Blue Skies also brought up talking about parking the bus and long ball, and unfortunately not that different than Peter's point. But again, we know that there are brief periods where we can have exciting forward play. A lot of it, if it is long ball, it's accurate long balls, not just aimless hoofing, where you're actually picking DCL. DCL, when he's on form, can do a one-touch pass to the 3 kind of supportive players. You've got McNeil recently in the middle, either Harrison or Lindstrom on the right, and Njai, or just simply do a little through ball in the channel to Njai and watch him work his magic, which has been really exciting this year. He was shut down, though, last week, which was quite interesting against Fulham.
Yeah, and it's easy to do. He's a brilliant player, Njai's magic, but if you put 2 players on him, Mikalenko's not overlapping, so you're not creating that overload, and again, you're not making defences think twice. This is probably one of the bigger criticisms about Sean Dyche football, is that the team is very, very static. His fullbacks, we mentioned about Ashley Young, barely crossed the halfway line, and that's what he wants. But what that does mean is that you're sacrificing your ability to attack, your ability to be more dynamic going forward. So it's not Njai's fault that he was isolated. It was tactical from Fulham, and he wasn't helped by Mikalenko not going forward, which is an instruction. It's not a dig on Mikalenko. I think that's a manager instruction.
Yeah. Well, what is interesting, we can certainly dig on Mikalenko. I think he's fine when people are running at him, but he hasn't been as good as he was last season, I will say.
Yeah.
He struggles at balls at the back post a lot. But what I do find really interesting this year in particular, it was a follow-up from what he seemed to do last season, where when McNeil tucked into the middle, then Mikalenko basically had the entire wing to himself, and all of a sudden he was more comfortable going forward. And I'm starting to see when anytime Njai cuts in, then Mikalenko realizes he can go forward. But if anyone is near, it's almost like in chemistry where you think about like the two bonds and they go kind of, wait, sorry, boink, or like they get only get so close to each other before all of a sudden Mikalenko is like, oh, sorry, I'm too close, and he doesn't know how to like maneuver in tight spaces with a, like a fellow player on that left side. So what Njai needs to do for Mikalenko to do well, which actually I've seen a few times now, if Njai goes to the center, then Mikalenko is out wide, and he does an occasional cross. It's not enough for what I want to see, but how do we get that overlap, or is it even possible with the Dyche setup? It's like, okay, Mikalenko, you're in the way of Njai, so just back off. Or, hey, run, son, you've got the whole wing to yourself, go. There has to be more to it, but that seems to be how I've seen that dynamic on the left side.
Yeah, I mean, it is very much a case of he needs to he needs to commit on that run, because a lot of the time, all you're doing, you don't need to touch the ball. You commit on that run. It's all about making the opposition think twice. If you play static, you play predictable, it's easy to defend against. If you're going inside, you've got to have a man running outside to drag a defender across. You do that enough times, you create more space for Njai. When they start moving inside, you have the space. So it works both ways. Yeah, that's all. He needs to commit more. But again, it's a Sean Dyche instruction that he's not. I don't think he's the most confident anyway, so it suits him. But if he's asked to go forward, he will, and it'll either create more space for Njai or it'll create a chance for him to whip a ball in, which he's not terrible at.
Yeah, if he thinks about it, he's not any good. First touch, he's actually been quite okay, I've noticed. So where are we? So Peter Duggan making the point that Njai isn't a winger; he's a penetrating number 10. But Dyche would rather play Mr. Hot and Cold there instead. I misread that as Mr. Hat, Peter. So sorry, but Mr. Hot and Cold there instead in Dwight McNeil. So McNeil doesn't have the pace as a left winger. He likes coming in on that right side, and then he can curve on his left foot. And a lot of the bottom end clubs in the Premier League seem surprised that a left footer could be on the right wing as an inverted winger, and he's very advantageous there. But it's any good squad. I don't think Southampton is going to qualify, but Fulham, for example, really shut down McNeil. So what you're then asking is, how do we shake it up? And you're saying we need variety, different looks. Dwight McNeil moving from left, maybe going to the right wing from time to time. Let's say, for a hypothetical here, Dwight McNeil is injured. We now have a vacancy on that left side. It's either Dwight McNeil, it's Illiman and Jai. Sorry, no, it's either Harrison. It's it could be Njai, or it could be Lindstrom. Who would you say, if McNeil is out, who do you see playing left, center, or right? I suppose Abdoulaye Doucouré is in conversation too.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he pushes Abdoulaye Doucouré into that position. I will be disappointed. That's what I think he will do. But if you're asking me what I think we should do, Harrison on the right, he didn't have a good game, but if McNeil's injured, needs must. Njai on the left because he wants that consistency, so you stick with that. And then Lindstrom in the middle. What you can then do, because all three of them players can play on the right, can play on the left, can play in the centre. They don't have to be completely fluid, because I know he'll have a heart attack. So the gaffer on the sideline. But what you can do is periodically switch where them players are positioned. And then once again, because they've all got different playing styles, you're making the defence think. Do they come short? Do they go with... Are they going to play a bit more physical? Do they need to watch the ball over the top because Lindstrom's got pace? That's what a lot of the best teams do. It's what... I'm not comparing us to City and then plays the City players, but that's what City do. They'll have Doku on the left, Foden on the right, player in the centre, and they'll just constantly switch positions, so then the defenders don't know what they're dealing with. You make them think twice, you put that doubt in the mind. You're just creating more opportunity.
And you're bringing up some really key players there. Let's say two that come to mind with that same type of attitude. Phil Foden for City, and a lot of the Man City players, their job is to sit in a defender's blind spot and make them uncomfortable and not concentrate on the job at hand and not knowing where they are. Another one that has been not having a great season with Spurs, but James Maddison is really clever at kind of looking where players are and just kind of backing off. And I think Everton defensively have a lot of trouble with that. But you know what? That is a difficult thing for any defense to do. So you know what, Everton? Why don't we do that more? We from time to time we have done it, but yeah, quite often, especially when it's hold the line and out of possession, he's not going to let Njai be on the right wing. That's not normal for him. They want to have that relationship with the left centre back, the left back, and the left central midfield, and Njai is right there, and they know exactly where to position. So I think it's only when things are looking good is he letting go have fun. We're up 1-0 or we're up with possession and we're causing them trouble, you know?
Yeah, you're correct. And it is, look, he's pragmatic, and that's purely all it is. It's his ideology, it's his way of managing a football team and managing a game. But I do think we'd be a lot better if, even last week against Fulham, if we'd have just changed things in terms of where players are positioned. McNeil on the right, so he's on his left foot if you want. Njai in the middle, Harris on the left. It just changes things up.
Yep.
You just put different players with different strengths against other players, and you're making them think.
Yeah. So this is something I've been thinking about as well. For a right winger, Ashley Young doesn't have as much pace as clearly he used to, but if you're looking for the defensive discipline and tracking back, Ashley Young knows how to do that. He's been a right back this season a lot, and he can help, especially when Coleman's been in the team. They'll often double team whoever's pacey on that right side, and he has been delivering crosses from advanced positions. So maybe that is the option, is to bring Young out wide right, give Harrison just a new look, because you saw his confidence went down. He looked better against Ipswich, taking on players, and they were struggling with him. Granted, Ipswich are not a good squad defensively, especially when a few players are out. So putting too much on that, I'm not. But Harrison moving to the other side maybe just gives him a different vein of confidence instead of square peg in the round hole. It's the 11th position to be decided on every week. Alex Iwobi dealt with the same problem before he was decided to get out of here.
Yeah, and as one of the issues last week was he was up against someone who's really, really pacey. He's not fast. He is a bit tricky. So Anthony Robinson had his number all game. If you put him on the left-hand side where he doesn't need that little bit of pace, because he can just, balls on a stronger foot, he can whip a ball in. It gives him a little bit more. In terms of Ashley Young in right mid, I don't think this is the game for it, because although I do think he can play there, and I think he's got a mean cross on him because he's never lost that ability, he's going to be crossing from deep. He's not going to be crossing in from an advanced position because he's not got the legs. So if you're coming across a team that's much better than you, and you're having to play deep, then that'd work, because he'll start that defensive role. He'll deal with the pacey attacking fullback or forward, and then he can play that deep ball in. You pack the box with a couple of big men, and maybe two in front.
The only scenario I see where that he could play more advanced is if Dyche trusts, the keyword trust, his right back, which is going to be if Seamus Coleman came into right back, then he would have confidence with it. Otherwise, you're basically having a back five with the right back and a right winger sitting on top of each other just in case, or you're caught out of possession. All right, so why don't we quickly look at what Southampton lined up on against Man City. They've quite often played 5 at the back, but they do play 4 at the back as well. So, Corey, what are your thoughts on what you've seen with Southampton tactically, defensively so far?
So, like you've mentioned there, they play in a back 5, occasionally go into a back 4. Whoever plays left back typically pushes up into that attacking position. If you look there, you've got Matheus Fernandes, considered the left midfielder there. He is more of a central midfielder. Who likes to drive forward into the box, be a little bit creative. They've been very, very inconsistent in terms of that back 5 or back 4, that defensive line. The main consistent is that Harwood Bellis is at the heart of it. He's a very, very good centre-back. He's got a good bit of height. He's decent on the ball as well, but he's let down by the other players. Sugawara, we were linked with, decent going forward. He's looked very lax defensively. Ryan Manning, again, same, decent going forward at times, but poor defensively. Bednarek's been very poor, and Captain Jack Stevens hasn't been very well either. There's a lot of space to be found between them defenders, whether it's a back 5 or a back 4. If you watch a lot of the goals, it is literally fairly fast-paced passing game, and their defences are just at odds at 6s and 7s. They just don't pick their man up as the ball comes in. So if we've got some late runners into the box, the Corey's, Idrissa Gana Gays, Njai's, they're there for us.
Yep. No, I think this is. I can't see this being a 0-0, but because I said it, that's probably what happens. But well, Sugawara was terrible against Stoke midweek. So if he's playing with a very shaky confidence right now. Bednarek has been a problem, like holding possession for them, a lot of turnovers, and then the other one that people used to think really highly of, and all of a sudden he became out of favor at Arsenal. Aaron Ramsdale defensively, he can save with his hands, he just can't use his feet. Sounds a bit like our own striker in Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but
a lot of the goals I've watched as well, they've come from a fair bit of distance, not absolute screamers, but across the face of goal. Now, whether that's because they've got so many defenders there, not in the best position, and it's blocking off his sight line, that's something for us to be able to take advantage of as well. So if we're having shots from just outside the box, if they start to defend low, which I don't think will happen, players like McNeil, if he plays in Jai, they can hit it from long, and again, that can cause Aaron Ramsdale some problems as well.
Yeah. So Mr. Blue Skies brought up an interesting point here. So I was very big on, hey, why don't we bring in the likes of a Kyle Walker-Peters? He seems to be underperforming his expectations at the moment. He's been put in centre half, oddly enough, a few times for them. But if they do have one player advancing and it's Kyle Walker-Peters, or of their kind of back 4 or 5, if it's Walker-Peters, then to Mr. Blue Sky's point, Tyler Dibling and Kyle Walker-Peters could be an interesting pairing to take on the likes of Mikalenko and probably Njai. I think Everton have enough to handle it, but that can be famous last words, and you need one moment of Premier League brilliance and you bite your words on it. But I feel, yes, Walker-Peters is dangerous. Dibling is a prospect, but generally speaking, I'm not too worried. Njai has been doing quite a lot defensively. He may not be out. He's not going to outmuscle anyone, but he's going to be able to take on someone the size of Tyler Dibling and out tackle and fox him, I think.
Yeah, certainly. Look, there's chances all over the pitch for us to attack. Defensively, I do think we have what it takes to hold off them players going forward. Where the concern would be if Dibling maybe cuts inside, gets into that channel.
Especially if Keane's in the squad, huh?
Yeah, especially if Keane's in the squad, exactly. If we have Jarrad Branthwaite in, he covers that. He makes Mikalenko feel a lot more confident. If Branthwaite plays, as he should, they're not going to get much joy in that area. We can push up against them, but they're not very good at crosses. They've not got a big man in that team. Cameron Archer doesn't win headers. So if we were to play narrow, which again Dyche likes to do, they won't breach us. I can see us keeping a clean sheet if we're smart about it, and we really should be able to score as well.
Yeah. So I think Peter's seconding our point here, especially Ghana Gay, if in a pretty tactically aware player that knows how to close off spaces. Ghana Gay, Mikalenko, and then especially Branthwaite, kind of doubling our point here that Walker-Peters and Dibling don't stand too much of a chance. Cameron Archer too, like he's been any team that has red and white stripes, he'll probably join. I guess he can't join Stoke right now because he just played them. Maybe he can play for Sunderland next season, but Cameron Archer, like he had this really hot start last season. He scored against us away at Southampton, but he doesn't seem to be consistently proving that he has the chops for the Premier League. The other player, I don't know if he's fit or not, but Brereton Diaz. I'm not sure I've seen too much of him, but there was a lot of excitement that he could cause a lot of trouble last season and did a similar move from, Sheffield to Southampton over the offseason.
Yeah, that's correct. I don't think he's got what it takes to cause us a lot of issues. There was a lot of concern when we played Sheffield United last season in terms of what he could cause. I think he had one good chance by being in a good position, which is his forte, is being in that good position. he has been in and out the side. He's not a starter for them at the moment. And the leading line with Cameron Archer. So again, not something I'm too worried about. Like I said, there's not much in terms of that attack that I am massively concerned about, especially how we defend, and especially if Jarrad Branthwaite's playing, he'll nullify their main issue.
So to Sean Radley's point, it's not going to be a pretty watch. This screams to me of, I think there's more goals than the Everton Burnley match at Goodison, but I see it being a bit like that. But it's too early in the season to be that cagey. I think it might be kind of underwhelming. A lot of just like nerves and just poor play, sloppy giveaways, especially for Southampton. And I have the feeling that Southampton will nick a goal from our sloppiness. I don't know if you kind of feel that.
Yeah, that's probably their best chance of scoring, to be honest, is a mistake from us. Like Mr. Blue Skies has said, the Archer's a poor player. He's not a very good striker. He's not a Premier League striker in my mind. So any goal he scored will be from our sloppiness. I can't see him scoring. I see a clean sheet for us. A better, more dynamic side, or a more informed Everton side should put Southampton to the sword with at least a 2-goal win. That's the biggest concern, is our lack of ability to get through teams as well. We don't attack with pace, and that's where Southampton are weakest.
Yeah, I think the final line here, and I think we're about saving our conversation for Saturday pre-match. But Adam Lallana being the main concern. If Mangala plays, he might handle him, but he's in form at the moment, giving Southampton a lot of penetration through the middle. Yeah, I think Adam Lallana is the most proven Premier League player in this squad. Yes, you could say Ramsdale. Yes, Tyler Diblin has had flashes recently, but it just doesn't, to me, feel like a Premier League side. And if I jinx us and we lose to them, it's not because Southampton are good enough. I think Everton just weren't playing the right way. I think we're going to play uber defensive and then wait for a couple errors after about 20 minutes. That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, I can't see us starting too quick, especially away from home on the south coast. He will want to get a footing in the game. So I think you're very much correct in what you're saying. Adam Lallana is the man to make him tick. But apart from Harwood Bellis, they're the only proper Premier League outfield players in that team. A couple of players on the cusp: Walker Peters, Ryan Manning, Matthias Fernandez. But the rest of the players, for me, the Championship players, and they're looking like it at the moment. We'll lose the game. They won't win it, is the most likely scenario.
Yeah, they don't seem to have the heart that Luton did last season when they came and actually just showed it a bit more. No, let's be honest though, no Premier League club truly lacks heart, but they can show it by how they play on the pitch. They're playing a very particular way, well drilled in it, but they have a pretty blunt butter knife when it comes to cutting through teams, even if they like to hold possession.
Yeah, they play nice. They play nice football. Russell Martin tactically has them playing decent football. They have a good amount of possession, like they've shown against us in the cup. But they just don't have the players to be able to attack teams and to finish things off, because they don't have Premier League players. And if you're going to play like that, I mean, Burnley came up and they had much more higher quality players in their side, which at times they've shown they were competitive with teams. Southampton are trying to play the same way, but they don't have the same level of player. Their squad is even worse. So they're not even staying competitive in a lot of games. They're just struggling altogether.
Yeah. So the final point: do we think Dyche loses his job? I wish, but no, I don't. I don't see this being the case. It should be truly embarrassing to give, but we did this last year. Luton's first win ever in the Premier League was at Goodison Park. Nothing happened. Does it really change tomorrow? No, we're not. We're not going to be in the relegation zone. I don't see them pulling the trigger. They're very cautious right now.
Yeah, no one's making a decision at all, unless we drop to a very, very bottom of the table and it looks dire and players are throwing things and destroying the changing room. We're not letting Dyche go, at the very least, till the new owners come in, most likely till the end of the season.
And if anyone is caught chasing down Anthony Gordon in Newcastle, that'll guarantee he keeps his job this time.
Most definitely, yeah. We'll send a couple of people out.
Yeah, some scouts. Yeah, we'll pull them away from the Scandinavian scouting network and bring them to up by the Toon Army. All right. Well, I think that's it for now. Before we talk ourselves into a spiral here, before we see lineups, we have some concerns on who plays. We of course want Branthwaite. Hopefully, McNeil's feeling better. But this should be a win for Everton this weekend. But famous last words, knowing how we play. So I guess until next time on Saturday, up the Toffees. I think, Corey, you're going to be joining me for pre-match as well. I'm not sure what the post-match is going to look like at the moment, but I'm sure we'll announce it.
See you all on Saturday.
All right. Up the Toffees.
Up the Toffees.